This is Gary Atencio with CNTV, and today we're in Colorado. I'm here with Clark Brothers Investment. Since 2007, they provided #1 ranked investment results for the individual investor in the country. I'm joined by Jason Clark, who is the founder, chief investment officer, really expert on the Buffett way. Let's start off a little bit about yourself. I mean, you are a U.S. graduate from you're a graduate from the U.S. Military Academy at West Point in 1992. You served as a United States Army officer at Fort Carson in Colorado. In your past, you have traded equities for the Goldman Sachs on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. Share with me a little bit how this passion began early on for you when it comes to investments.
My dad took me to his guy when I was 16, and I was hooked ever since. So I've been studying stock market since I was 16, the Buffett way since I was 16. And really interesting, Gary, is what I found out is not a lot of people know the Buffett way. They know who he is, but they don't really know what it makes up, the philosophy, the strategies behind how Buffett does what he does. And one clarification for the folks out there, we're not telling you that you can do it. You can be Warren Buffett. You should do it. Let us do it. But the basic philosophy behind it, people can believe in.
Interesting. So we're talking about since way back in high school, you've been studying this way. I mean, your mission from day one has been educating, informing, and empowering your clients to get invested and stay invested. I mean, is that still the cornerstone of what you do?
Yes. We sold that for a pretty good sum of money to the old Scott trade back in the day, and it was on a Super Bowl commercial, actually. Yep. A lot of people called me and they're like, hey, you can't use that anymore. And I'm like, no. I sold that to them. So we still use it to this day. It's pretty self-explanatory. Get invested, stay invested.
Still something important to you, educating your clients out there on everything, all the knowledge that you have.
Exactly. We only deal with individual investors. We could deal with institutional investors, but from where I come from, I enjoy helping regular people. We don't have account minimums, for example. A lot of the bigger firms do. They all do, actually. We're one of the very few firms that don't, and we never will. You can mark my word on that, because I want to help people. A lot of family and friends, their kids are now customers, and those are smaller accounts, and they're going to be big accounts in 10, 15, 20 years. So that's our focus. That's our only purpose, is dealing with the individual investor.
Exciting. I mean, your experience spans over 15 years in this industry professionally. I imagine you've seen many changes in the industry since your days back on the floor there. Are these changes that we see today, technology, are they good for individual investors?
They're great. It doesn't necessarily have to do with the technology, because you didn't even used to be able to use the internet. You had to call your broker, and they had slips, the paper to bring. The basic concept of the Buffett way is own a business. So how you buy and purchase shares in that business has changed dramatically. That's really irrelevant to the individual investor. You are still a business owner of the companies you own. Boeing, Disney, Ford, as big as they are, it doesn't matter. You still own a segment of that business.
Warren Buffett. He's one of the most successful investors in the world. He has a net worth of over $103 billion. He has remained a roadmap for you and your company. How and why did the Buffett way become your way? How did that start way back when you started studying it?
Well, we've added an enhancement, not to sound overly, I'm not trying to say I'm Warren Buffett. I'll never be Warren Buffett. But I've noticed leadership from my background at West Point in the military was also a component that we could model. And guess what, Gary? In all the things, the books, articles that Buffett writes about, he talks about management, but he never talks about leadership. So the leadership component to this is an interesting enhancement, I think, because sometimes management and leadership's a little bit different. If you think of Jeff Bezos, you think of the best business guys, even Warren Buffett himself. If you look on Wikipedia, it says the leadership of Berkshire Hathaway, Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger.
So the Buffett way on your steroid program, you've enhanced it. It's something that really you've kept with the times since 2020. I mean, that was a big year for everyone. We've seen the market plummet. We've seen investors get frightened. How has your proprietary internal barometer been able to help you stay up and stay positive?
Well, people have different skill sets and different personalities, and it takes a certain skill set and personality to be a good investor. Yeah. Some people can do it, some people can't. And that's not to say anything against people that aren't good investors, but recognizing that is very important for the individual investor. And I think we've done a pretty good job, because the Buffett way, with leadership, the Clark Brothers way, is really relatable to a lot of people. It can be simple as, where you go shop, where do you buy products, what kind of car do you drive, what kind of phone do you have, Apple, Samsung. It's very deep. And that's relatable to a lot of people. Now, that might not mean that, I have the iPhone, so I'm going to go buy Apple right now. That this might not be the time to buy it because of valuations, what's going on in the market. But in essence, that's the Buffett way. It's not overly complex.
Interesting. I mean, the real simple rule that you have lived by is don't lose money. That's definitely something. Is it just as important what you don't buy as what you do buy? And what is your advice on the new shiny product that's created a lot of buzz out there, which is Bitcoin? Touch on that for me.
We don't do Bitcoin. And of course, Buffett and Munger don't believe in it either. And it's not something that I understand, so I don't do it. We only do stocks, individual stocks. We own those companies. We buy and hold for the most part. But you're right. When things get out of whack in the market, then you want to make sure that your customers are protected from downside risk. And those are short-term things. But Buffett does the same thing. A lot of people think that he doesn't. Yet, yes, he does. He trims positions and he takes care and makes sure that we don't. But this is a really good question, actually, that a lot of people don't really understand, especially the individual investor. Say for Bitcoin, you can buy 1,000 shares of Bitcoin or 100 shares of Bitcoin. Okay. But are you really going to put your entire life savings that you've worked for 20 years into Bitcoin? I hope not, because if you're wrong, you're going to lose it. And that's one thing, that's the number one rule. Don't lose money. Rule number 2, don't forget rule number 1. But you can put a substantial amount of money into companies like Boeing, Ford, Disney. That's the difference. That's the difference of concentration of positions. Another Buffett principle that a lot of people don't understand. That's why he's able to generate the returns that he does from analyzing the securities correctly and buying a large stake in Apple, for example.
I'm glad you touched on that. It's important for the viewers out there. You now provide #1 ranked investment results for investors. What does that mean exactly? How does that set you apart from many others out there?
If you follow the portfolio, so we have a Clark Brothers Investments model leadership portfolio. It's an actual portfolio from a customer. The regulators looked into this. Actually, we talked about this before the show, and they can't give it a pass, but there has been no fines, no penalties, no grievances with my company. We have no customer complaints in 20 plus years, but they can't stamp it and say we approved of this. But they found no errors in my math. So the returns are the returns. They're on our website, and that's the one thing that separates us from almost every other company out there. And yes, along these lines, like we were talking about before, I did a report, 400 pages, 175 specific examples. Thank you to my high school English teacher, Perry Weissman. Shout out. Specific examples. I researched everybody. Yes, Merrill Lynch, Edward Jones, all the hedge fund guys on Wall Street, all the mutual funds, all the private equity. I did the research on that. We easily rank as the #1 for the individual investor, because a lot of those companies don't take money for individual investors. You have to be an institution. A lot of the hedge funds on Wall Street, think, the big hedge funds, they don't deal with individual investors. It's on their websites. So we only deal with individual investors. We rank #1 for the individual investor in numerous categories. 1, 3, 5, 10, 12 year, easily ranking in the top 1% amongst everybody. We had that on our website. Because of regulations, we had to take that down. I understand that, and that's something that the customer should know. In other words, it's not Clark Brothers, it's our model leadership portfolio. If you follow this to a T, whether it's 10,000, 50,000, or 3 million, you're gonna get the exact same results.
That is impressive. Let me ask you this, Jason. I've sat down with many investment professionals in the past 12 years. It seems the conversation soon turns into insurance and annuities. Why has this never been an area that you've chosen to focus your expertise in?
We don't do annuities and we don't do insurance because, one, Buffett. That's one reason. He doesn't subscribe to that. He subscribes to buy term and invest the difference, which is what we do. Which is, if you focus on investing and the returns, you don't need insurance to do that as well. Insurance is a safeguard, and that's just, you need to have insurance, right? In case something happens. Yes, of course we're not saying you don't need that, but by the cheapest, best available from the best companies, you don't need the expensive insurance that a lot of these brokers sell. They get a massive commission on, And there's investments inside of there. It's two separate. You have insurance, you have investing. We focus on investing. The insurance side, even writing a financial plan, this is another good point I think maybe the consumers out there should know. Writing a financial plan is really easy to do. You can do it in 5 minutes, okay? You've got a trust, you got a will, you got a 401k, you have an IRA, you have an education IRA, you're done. Takes 20 minutes for most people, most individual investors. The focus should be on the returns. That's where you're going to get a competitive advantage. And it's amazing how much the returns add up, compound interest.
Sure.
People don't realize that either. There's another point we should make to the folks out there. They say, oh yeah, I know what compound interest is, but no one's ever really explained it to them, the difference of 10% and 20% annualized for 10, 20 years. You're talking an enormous difference of money. To give you an example, my brother, who knows I talk about him and I use, he's 44, married, 3 kids. He's got a portfolio that is 7 figures. Okay, so it's over $1 million. If he gets 10%, you know, what the market's getting, when he's my dad's age, say 75, 77, right? He would have probably a net worth of around 30 to 35 million. Wow, that's a lot, right? That's great. That's awesome. That's incredible. It is. But guess what? If you take the 10% to 20%, which doesn't sound like a lot, every year,
sure,
he'd be worth $3 billion. He'd be a multi-billionaire. And people are like, oh, I don't believe that. Yeah, it's math. I could do it on a calculator. Straight up math.
The power of compounding.
The power of compounding.
That is huge. I mean, no account minimums, no hidden fees, no commission-driven sales. Why does this matter to the individual investors as they're choosing an investment professional to work with?
You want to look at what money you're putting into your pocket, not mine. And so we do charge. We charge 1%. That's industry standard. We have to make money. We're a business. Sure. People understand that. But we want to give as much back to the customer as we possibly can. That's another reason why we get a lot of accounts from larger companies, because they charge too, but they don't have the investment returns, 1. And 2, there are a lot of hidden fees. I mean, I pull up account statements from companies and the person's like, oh yeah, I pay my guy 1%. They're actually paying 2.4% net. And they just don't know. And you point that out to them. So it's a combination of that with the returns. It really is, I get a lot of enjoyment out of even like my brother. I mean, you know, he's financially set. He's 44 and he doesn't have to worry about it. He still does, but he shouldn't. But you know, it's a real satisfaction comes from when you really help people. And I know everybody says that, but the way that I help people, this is why my family and friends, they all have accounts with me. Not all, but a lot, is I do focus on the returns. And I point this out to people.
So it's important. Net returns is a big key there.
These are net. That's right. That's right.
When you're talking about commissions, all those things.
Yep.
I mean, you've always been more than a capable manager for clients, but yet you've also been a visionary leader. Would you say that difference is really what sets you apart many times because of your not just managing for them, but really a visionary leader to see what you can do for them?
Yeah, especially in technology. You know, that's, you know, a lot of this is a little bit different with the Buffett ways, and he just recently started to buy Amazon, Apple, and some more tech companies. And this is the reason, because a lot of times those are not, you know, they're not cash flow. I've noticed a trend, and it's mostly in technology, a trend of innovation that American companies really can thrive on, and that's a lot in the technology sector where you get a lot of those gains. Interesting.
I mean, for Buffett, the stock market was just there really as a reference for him. His attitude was that of a business owner. I mean, is that really the mindset you have when choosing and keeping companies to invest in, looking at it as a business, really?
Absolutely, because it is. You're a business owner. This is another aspect that the individual investor is like, well, I'm not Jeff Bezos. Well, you're not going to own 20% of $1 trillion company, no. But you can own 1% of 1% of 1%, and you have the exact same rights as Jeff Bezos does at Amazon as a shareholder. Now, he has more power because he has more shares.
Sure.
And he's a founder, and he's on the board, and he's involved in the day-to-day operations. But someone like Buffett has that advantage. Like, he's buying Occidental Petroleum. He owns 20% now. He has a say in how that company does things. Why not piggyback on Buffett? Why not piggyback on the greatest investors? You can own Occidental just like he owns Occidental. There's no difference.
When we first met 12 years ago, you were running for governor here in Denver. As a veteran-owned company, is it still rewarding serving your community and giving back by helping your clients get ahead?
I consider myself more of an activist. And if I see something wrong in the political or the
Sure.
regulatory environment or investments, then I'd like to try to fix it and change it. And that's what led me to the Buffett way. I noticed no one really follows this. They say they do, they kind of think they do, but there's no national firm in the country. Clark Brothers is the only one that I know of that teaches and employs the Buffett way to the individual investor so they can make the returns, similar returns. Of course, we're not going to duplicate Warren Buffett, the greatest investor ever. I'm not saying that. But we can certainly beat the index. We can certainly compete with Wall Street by owning businesses, not trying to trade, predict the market, predict elections, what party the president's from. These things we leave out of it for investing. And we buy companies that are trading at good valuations.
Is it rewarding for you when you see these individuals that you help? You talked about families, friends. You talk about clients that become friends. Is that a rewarding part for you when you get to see their portfolio do what you knew it would do, even over a span of years?
Better than any drug. I've never done drugs, so I guess I wouldn't know. But it's better than any high you could possibly get. The success of seeing, your stock picks. Well, that's what does it for me. I'm a competitive person. So when I see that I'm right, and it benefits my customers, that's the whole point, right? Then yeah, that's a tremendous amount of satisfaction. And it's a very competitive business.
Yeah, it is. Viewers, let's take a look at the bottom of the screen right there. What you're going to see is their website. On the website, you can learn more about the mission of this organization, learn more about the Buffett way, but also the Clark Brothers way. We're talking about enhancing really years and years of knowledge that he is able to share with his clients that's kept them successful based on industry-leading returns. That is the Clark Brothers investment since 2007, helping you get invested, stay invested, as they provide number one ranked investment results for the individual investor in the country. This is Gary Atencio with CNTV. And if you don't know, now you know.